Now, ladies and gentlemen, I'm very excited about our next speaker. He plays a very, very important role in this movement, in the animal rights and veganism movement, by publishing books about the topics of animal rights and veganism. Very, very important to get the word out there in the form of print, and this man does a stellar job of it. He is the vice president of Lantern, is the publisher at large, rather, at Lantern Books, and vice president of Booklight Inc., which publishes many of the iconic vegan titles of our day. He blogs regularly at rightoffthebatbook.com and has authored several books himself. You can visit his website at www.martin-rowe.com. Ladies and gentlemen, a big round of applause for Martin Rowe.
First time I've ever had a musical intro. How exciting. Yes, good morning. Good afternoon. I'm Martin Rowe, and I'm the publisher at Lantern Books. And for the old-timers, I was the co-founder of Satya magazine all those years ago. I'm pleased to say that later on this year, Satya will be bringing out a 20th anniversary edition, a single volume that will be a really extraordinary reflection on 20 years since it first came out in 1994-5, and all that's changed since then, and all that sadly remains the same. So as a book publisher, I find myself in a very interesting time in publishing, whereby the books that were considered to be outre and not of commercial interest, books on vegetarianism and veganism, now find themselves on a full table in Barnes & Noble. If you just go in there, you'll see that. And whereas in the past, and this was the premise of Satya, we were trying to bring environmental and animal advocates and vegans together because there was so much that held us together, so many concerns about living lightly on the land and caring for other than human life and caring for the well-being and bodies of ourselves as well as other animals. Whereas there were many discrepancies in keeping people apart, when you go on into Barnes & Noble, you will see that on the same table as vegan and vegetarian cooking is living green. So they understand in Barnes & Noble that at least they deserve to be on the same table, even if they're separated by a border, just in case the green people don't want to go around the other side and see the vegan vegetarian stuff. So, but at least they're on the same table. So in 2004, Toyota decided to create a vegan car. I don't know if you remember this in 2004. They decided to create a car that had no leather in it at all. And this was deliberate, and they put out a statement saying, we're creating a vegan car because vegans, if we can get the vegans happy, then everybody else will be happy. And they promoted this as not only an environmentally friendly car, but a car with conscience. So that you could buy that car with a clear conscience. If you wanted leather seats, they were the extra option that you had to ask for. Now, I thought that was a very interesting thing, because when you think about vegans, we're a tiny percentage of the population, a very small proportion of people who call themselves vegetarians. And yet for Toyota, they were the central point of their marketing. They were the central locus whereby everything else radiated out from that. And so I thought to myself, okay, so vegans are at the center as well as being at the periphery. So the challenge that all of us who are engaged in the struggle to make this a vegan world is to stop thinking of ourselves on the periphery and start thinking of ourselves in the center. And doing more than that, making sure that everybody else thinks of veganism, like Toyota, in the center. And that the vegan lifestyle is the default lifestyle. And so if you want to have those added extras, whether it's leather car seats, you have to ask for them and have to pay for them. So that was 10 years ago, and I think we're moving more and more in that direction. But I would like to see more companies and more organizations not necessarily doing that, but getting to the stage where they think about that. Green Festivals, which is a wonderful organization that holds environmental festivals and expos around the nation. They have them in DC, they have one in New York, they have in Chicago, in Austin, in San Francisco. That is a vegan festival. You would never know it, they don't say it, but all the food that they prepare is vegan. Their default is vegan. Now, a few years ago, somebody complained and said, why isn't your food vegan? Because nobody had seen that it was vegan, and so they assumed that there would be meat and dairy that would be there, and they said, well, it's vegan. So we have to get ready for a world where we just assume that something is vegan, and we don't have to complain if we don't see the big V word out there saying it's vegan. So let's get that into our mindset. Now, finally, as a book publisher, I find myself in a strange situation because technology is changing the way people receive information. Technology is changing whether people want to pay for the information they're receiving. And technology is also changing the way people consume that information. And that feels to me as though things are changing in a way that I can't foresee what's happening. So we're being pushed into this technological future that is very hard to understand where it's going. But we're also going back to the past. Those serials that you listen to, whether it's serial on the radio or the serialization of House of Cards that you have to binge watch one after the other on Netflix, that's very similar to how people used to read books back in the 19th century. They would line up for the next edition of Dickens's Little Dorrit, which would arrive in serial form. You used to be able to go into a bookstore and order a book. You used to go to a bookstore and the bookstore would print it for you. So you were an author and you say, I want to publish a book, and the bookstore would say, okay, well, how many friends do you have? And he said, well, I have 100 people that might buy my book. And the bookstore owner would say, well, pay £1 each and I will print your book for you. That happened in the 18th century. Go to the second floor of Barnes & Noble today and you can do exactly the same thing with modern technology. Veganism and vegetarianism faces the same issue. We now have more products available, we have now more options available, we have now more of a lifestyle that is acceptable and understandable to more and more people. And yet we have a very ancient and honorable tradition stretching all the way back to Pythagoras and Plutarch and all of the great religious traditions talking about caring for other animals and living lightly on the land. We can't forget that past as we are propelled into the future. We can't forget that for all of the opportunities that we have in this city to eat well, to eat healthily, there are still others who do not have that opportunity. We can't forget that this struggle has been going on for millennia. So just thinking that something's going to be solved in 5 years and that this is all going to be that everything's going to be fine is not the right way to think about it. Likewise, thinking it's all going wrong, it's all too late, it's never going to happen, that's also wrong-headed thinking, precisely for the reason that this struggle has been going on for so long. So I would say, look to the future, don't forget the past. Think of ourselves at the center as well as at the periphery. Read books, buy books, communicate, and together next year we'll be bigger and better and we'll have more and more people. Until the day when we become obsolete, because veganism is the default. Thank you.
Yes, well said, Martin Rowe. I don't know about you, but I've always thought that just listening to someone with a British accent just makes everything better. They could have imparted the worst news in the world and be like, all right, that's cool. Just keep talking, brother. Because I love the sound of your voice. Now, ladies and gentlemen, it is an incontrovertible